Hello, my dear English learners and lifelong dreamers. Welcome back to Roy English Talk, your trusted space to grow in language, life, and mindset. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into a topic that shapes destinies and builds success: why setting goals is important. Have you ever felt like you're stuck on a treadmill, moving, but not really getting anywhere? Days blend into weeks, weeks into months, and before you know it, an entire year has flown by. But somehow, your life still feels like it's in the same exact spot. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're just drifting, caught in the chaos of daily responsibilities without any clear sense of direction. And let's be honest, that can feel incredibly frustrating, even scary. So here's a question worth asking. What are you aiming for? Because without something to aim at, something clear, something intentional, we end up pouring our energy into distractions. Social media, endless to-do lists, people-pleasing. It's like trying to run a race without a finish line. You burn out fast, and all that effort starts to feel meaningless. Now, here's the thing most people don't realize. Goal setting isn't just a productivity hack. It's not just for CEOs or athletes or people who want to make $1 million. Setting goals is one of the most powerful psychological tools available to us as humans. It creates direction. It gives meaning to our actions. It literally changes the way our brain fires when we wake up in the morning. In this video, we're going to unpack why setting goals isn't optional. It's essential. We'll look at how goals activate your brain's dopamine reward system, how they shape your identity over time, and how they can pull you out of some of the darkest, most uncertain seasons of your life. But we're also going to ask the tough questions. Like, what happens when you don't set goals? What happens when you live on autopilot for too long? What does drifting do to your confidence, your focus, your sense of purpose? I'll also share stories, real ones, of people who went from stuck to unstoppable. People who discovered that setting the right kind of goal didn't just change what they did, it changed who they were. This isn't going to be a video filled with fluffy quotes or write your dreams in a journal and everything comes true nonsense. This is about being brutally honest with yourself and then getting serious about what kind of future you want to build. Because here's the truth, if you don't set your own goals, someone else will set them for you. And more often than not, that means living a life built on someone else's expectations, not your own desires. So, if you've ever looked in the mirror and wondered where your time is going, if you've ever felt overwhelmed by choices but unsure which path to take, if deep down you know your life could be more focused, more energized, more yours, then stick around. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why goal setting is so much more than checking boxes. You're going to learn how to set goals that actually matter. And maybe for the first time in a long time, you'll feel like you're finally back in control of your direction. Let's start with a question that doesn't get asked enough. What happens when we don't set any goals at all? Section 2. What happens without goals? Imagine waking up every day without a real reason to get out of bed. No excitement, no anticipation, just routines you didn't consciously choose and tasks you don't really care about. That's what life feels like without goals. It's like being on a boat in the middle of the ocean, drifting wherever the waves take you. No map, no compass, just movement without direction. Most people don't realize they're drifting until they hit something. Maybe it's a breakup, a job loss, or that quiet moment when they look in the mirror and think, "How did I get here?" This is the silent danger of living without goals. life doesn't stop moving. But you do. You get stuck. Your potential starts to decay. And the worst part? You probably won't even notice until it's too late. Without goals, life becomes a reaction game. You wake up reacting to your alarm, to your inbox, to people's demands. You become so busy responding to everything that you forget to design anything. Days turn into routines, routines into habits, and habits into years. But here's what really happens underneath the surface. Your self-confidence starts to erode. When you don't set goals, you don't give yourself opportunities to win. You don't get those small victories that tell your brain, I'm capable, I follow through, I grow. And without those, self-doubt sneaks in. Quietly, subtly, but powerfully. Think about this. When was the last time you did something for your future self? Not for your boss, not to pay bills, but for the version of you that exists 5 years from now. Without goals, that version of you doesn't exist. There's no roadmap, no progress to track. Just this endless loop of doing what's urgent while ignoring what's important. Let's break it down even further. When you have no goals, you lose clarity. You don't know what matters, so everything feels equally overwhelming. You lose energy. There's nothing pulling you forward, so you rely on willpower, and that runs out fast. You lose joy. Progress creates happiness. Without it, you're left chasing short-term pleasure, like scrolling, binge-watching, or overworking, just to feel something. And here's the truth. Drifting is dangerous because it feels comfortable. You don't face rejection. You don't risk failure. You just keep floating. But the longer you drift, the more you lose the you that once had dreams. Let me tell you a quick story. There was a guy, early 30s. Let's call him Mark. Smart, talented, college degree, good job. But every night he'd come home and feel this strange emptiness. He had money, friends, a Netflix queue full of shows, but he didn't feel alive. He was surviving, not living. One night, after binge-watching 6 hours of random YouTube, he sat on the floor and asked himself, "Is this it?" That question haunted him. Mark realized something simple but terrifying. He'd never actually decided what he wanted out of life. He had just followed the next logical step. Graduate, get a job, work hard, repeat. That moment became his wake-up call. Not because anything was wrong, but because nothing felt right. That's the power of goal setting. It gives you a choice. It gives you back your agency. Without it, you're just a passenger in your own life. So, if you've been feeling lost, uninspired, or stuck, it might not be because you're doing too little. It might be because you're not aiming at anything at all. Here's the challenge. Ask yourself what matters. Not just today, but 1 year from now. 5 years. What kind of person do you want to become? What would make you proud to look back and say, I chose that. I created that. Because until you do, you're not living. You're just drifting. Section 3. The psychology of goal setting. Most people think goal setting is about productivity. Like it's just a tool for getting more done. But what if I told you that setting a goal actually changes the chemistry of your brain? Let's talk about dopamine, the molecule of motivation. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure. It's about anticipation. It's the neurotransmitter that kicks in when you expect a reward. And when you set a goal, especially one that matters to you, your brain starts wiring itself toward that reward. It literally becomes obsessed with progress. That's why even the tiniest step toward a meaningful goal feels good. It's a hit of dopamine saying, yes, keep going. And that's powerful Because it creates a feedback loop. Set a goal, take a step, get a dopamine hit, repeat. But here's the catch. Without a goal, that loop doesn't exist. The brain just jumps from one distraction to another, looking for stimulation but never feeling satisfied. Neuroscience shows that when people have clear goals, their prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning and decision-making, lights up. It starts filtering information differently. You begin to notice things that help you reach your goal. Your attention sharpens. Your behavior shifts. You become more resilient to setbacks. It's like buying a red car and suddenly seeing red cars everywhere. That's your brain's reticular activating system at work. It filters what matters based on what you've told it to care about. And when you set a goal, you tell your brain, this is important now. But it's not just about motivation, it's about identity. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, explains it like this. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. And setting a goal is the ultimate declaration of identity. It says, this is the future me I believe in. It's not just about achieving something external, it's about becoming someone different internally. That's why vague goals don't work. I want to be better isn't a goal, it's a wish. A real goal has direction. It's specific enough that your brain can measure progress. It's emotionally charged enough that you care about the outcome. And it's challenging enough that your brain stays engaged. Let me give you an example. Say you set a goal to run a 5K in 3 months. Immediately, your brain starts reorienting. You start noticing running shoes in store windows. You start thinking about what time you can run during the day. You start paying attention to what you eat. That's not just motivation, it's transformation. And here's where it gets deep. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is what creates growth. That gap creates emotional tension, and tension, when channeled correctly, creates movement. Think of it like a rubber band. You stretch it between your current self and your ideal self. The greater the tension, the more energy you have to act. But if you have no vision of your future self, no goal, there's no stretch, no energy, no movement. This is why goal setting is critical during difficult times. It gives you psychological structure. When life feels chaotic or unpredictable, a goal becomes an anchor. It gives your mind a place to focus, a reason to keep going, something that pulls you forward even when everything else is falling apart. And guess what? The most successful people in every field, sports, science, business, art, they all have one thing in common. They're goal setters. Not because it's trendy, but because it's how the brain wins. They understand that goal setting isn't about pressure, it's about possibility. It's how you tell your future, I'm coming for you. But you don't have to be a CEO or an athlete to benefit from this. Anyone can train their brain to operate with goal-oriented focus. All it takes is intention. Set a goal that scares you a little. Break it down into steps. Track your progress. Celebrate wins. And most importantly, remind yourself that this is who you are becoming. Let's break down a few brain-backed benefits of goal setting. Increased focus. Your brain filters distractions and prioritizes what helps you advance. Increased motivation. Dopamine surges keep you emotionally connected to progress. Boosted confidence. Every completed milestone rewires your belief in your ability to grow. Resilience. When you have purpose, you bounce back faster from failure. Cognitive efficiency. Your brain uses less energy guessing what to do each day. Because the goal decides for you. The more specific, challenging, and emotionally relevant the goal is, the more intense these benefits become. Let me ask you this. What's a goal you've been avoiding? Something you care about but haven't written down, haven't committed to? Because the moment you set that goal, everything changes. Not because the result is guaranteed, but because now your brain has a mission, a reason to organize your habits, a reason to filter your environment, a reason to show up differently. Your goals are not just tasks. They are the future whispering back at you. So, listen carefully. What's it saying? Section 4, Clarity and Confidence. Let's talk about clarity, because in today's world, that's one of the hardest things to come by. We're drowning in information. Every day, thousands of voices compete for your attention. Notifications, headlines, ads, opinions. And without a clear direction, all that noise becomes overwhelming. You lose track of what matters. You spend hours doing, but somehow, at the end of the day, you feel like you've accomplished nothing. That's what happens when you don't have goals. Your brain is constantly forced to make decisions without a framework. And that creates decision fatigue, mental exhaustion from constantly having to choose between this or that without any guiding principle. But when you have a goal, everything changes. You suddenly have a filter. Should I spend time on this task? Should I accept this opportunity? Should I even worry about this problem? The answer becomes simple. Does it move me closer to my goal or not? This clarity reduces anxiety, because anxiety often comes from ambiguity, when you don't know what's coming next or whether what you're doing even matters. A well-set goal eliminates that ambiguity. It gives your brain a job, a mission, a reason. And when you start taking action toward that goal, even small steps, something else kicks in: confidence. Real confidence doesn't come from positive affirmations or pretending everything's fine. It comes from evidence. It comes from watching yourself follow through, from seeing the gap between I should and I did get smaller and smaller. That's why people who set and track goals often seem more grounded. It's not that they have all the answers, it's that they're moving forward with intention, and that movement builds trust with yourself. Think about that for a second. How powerful would it be to truly trust yourself? To know, when I say I'll do something, I do it. That's not ego, that's integrity. That's how confidence is built. But it starts with clarity, because you can't commit to something you haven't defined. Let me give you an example. Picture two people. Both are feeling stuck. Both want to improve their life. But only one takes the time to write down a goal. I want to improve my physical health. I will go to the gym 3 times a week, starting Monday. The other person just says, I should get healthier. Fast forward 30 days. One of them has a calendar with 10 gym sessions checked off. The other still feels stuck. Same desire, different clarity. And that clarity created confidence. Here's something else people forget. Setting goals also helps you say no. When you know what you're working toward, it becomes easier to spot distractions. You stop chasing every shiny object. You stop living on other people's schedules. You stop overcommitting. In other words, clarity protects your energy. And in a world full of noise, that's a superpower. Let's go even deeper. Clarity doesn't just help with what to do, it helps with how to do it. When you know your goal, you can reverse engineer the steps. You can break it down into small wins. You can build momentum. And momentum creates confidence like nothing else. You see, confidence isn't built all at once. It's built one promise at a time. Every time you follow through on a workout, a task, a decision, you're casting a vote for the kind of person you want to be. That's how identity is shaped. That's how self-respect grows. This is also why goals should be visible. Write them down, track them, put them somewhere you can see them. Because visibility reinforces clarity. It keeps your brain reminded, hey, this is where we're going. Let me ask you something. What's something you've been avoiding because it feels unclear? Is it a project, a personal change, a big decision? Write it down, define it, turn the fog into form. Because once you do, your mind stops spinning and starts solving. That's the power of a goal. It quiets the noise. It sharpens your focus. And it creates a pathway toward real, earned, unshakable confidence. You don't need more motivation. You need more clarity. And that clarity will unlock more confidence than any pep talk ever could. Section 5. Story of Transformation. Let me tell you a story. It's about a woman named Alina. She was 29. On paper, she had a decent life. Steady job, a few close friends, a small apartment in a quiet city. But underneath, she was spiraling. Every day felt like a blur. She woke up tired, hit snooze 4 times, rushed through her morning, sat in traffic, worked 8 hours on things that didn't light her up, then came home and collapsed into Netflix and takeout. And every night she'd whisper the same thing to herself. I know I'm meant for more than this. But nothing changed, not for months. Then one day, it all cracked open. It was a Sunday afternoon. She was cleaning out her closet when she found an old notebook from college. Inside, scribbled in blue ink, were a list of things she wanted to do before she turned 30. Start her own design business. Run a half marathon. Travel solo. Read 50 books. Learn Spanish. She read it once, then again, and she broke down in tears. Because she was only 10 months from her 30th birthday, and she hadn't done any of it. That moment hit her like a freight train, not because she failed, but because she had stopped aiming. She'd let time pass without steering. She had dreams, but no direction. So that night, Alina did something she hadn't done in years. She set a goal, a real one. Not a wish, not a vague hope, but a clear, measurable, and time-bound commitment. She wrote it on a sticky note and stuck it to her bathroom mirror. Register for the half marathon this week. Start training Monday. That tiny act, writing it down, flipped a switch in her brain. For the first time in years, she had something to move toward. The next morning, she woke up earlier. Not by much, just 10 minutes. But it was different. She felt like she had a reason, a direction, a spark. She went for a short jog. It was ugly. She was out of breath. Her legs burned. But she did it. And then, she did it again the next day, and again. 2 weeks later, she signed up for a local running group. A month later, she started tweaking her meals. She even turned down a happy hour to prioritize rest. And the most powerful part? None of this felt forced. It didn't feel like punishment. It felt like alignment. Because when you set a goal that's meaningful to you, every action around it starts to make sense. Things stop feeling like sacrifices. They start feeling like decisions you're proud of. 6 months in, Alina wasn't just training. She was thriving. Her energy had skyrocketed. She started saying no to things that drained her. She picked up a freelance client for the first time in her design career. She even started reading again, 1 book a week. She didn't hit every goal on that college list, but she hit something even more important. She became the kind of person who aims again. Her identity changed. She was no longer someone who used to dream. She was someone in motion, someone with momentum. And that's the real magic of goals. They create a gravitational pull. One win leads to the next. You start seeing yourself differently, and when you believe you're capable, you act accordingly. It's not about running marathons or starting companies. It's about reclaiming your agency, saying, I get to decide what my life looks like. Alina's story isn't rare. It's just that most people never reach that moment of reckoning. They ignore the notebook. They dismiss the whisper. They let fear or fatigue or self-doubt write their story instead. But what if you didn't? What if today was your moment? The one where you stop drifting and start aiming? It doesn't have to be huge. Just pick one goal. One decision that reconnects you to a version of yourself you actually admire. Because you're not stuck. You're just one commitment away from forward motion. The transformation doesn't happen overnight. But the decision to begin, that can happen right now. Section 6, How to Set the Right Goals. So now you're fired up. You get it. Goals matter. They create clarity. They fuel confidence. They shape identity. But here's the next question. How do you actually set the right goals? Because not all goals are created equal. There's a reason so many people make New Year's resolutions and forget them by February. It's not because they're lazy. It's because their goals are vague, unrealistic, or disconnected from who they really are. So let's get real. Let's talk about how to set goals that actually stick. First, let's start with the basics, what's known as the SMART framework. S. Specific. Don't say, I want to be healthier. Say, I want to go to the gym 3 times a week. M. Measurable. Track it. I want to read 12 books this year is better than, I want to read more. A. Achievable. Stretch yourself, but don't set a goal so massive it paralyzes you. R. Relevant. Make it personal. If you don't care about it deeply, you won't follow through. T. Time-bound. Give it a deadline. Open-ended goals lose urgency fast. Now here's the part most people miss. Goals should be emotionally anchored. That means they should connect to something bigger than the task, something that lights you up. For example, don't just say, I want to save $5,000. Ask yourself, why? Is it for freedom? For travel? For leaving your job? Tie your goal to an emotional driver. That's what keeps you going when motivation fades. And let's go even deeper. There are 2 kinds of goals, outcome goals and identity goals. An outcome goal is external. It's something you achieve. Like losing 20 pounds. An identity goal is internal. It's about who you become. Like becoming the kind of person who exercises consistently. Here's the magic. Identity goals create sustainable habits. They're rooted in your self-concept. And when your goal aligns with who you believe you are, you don't need as much motivation. You just act in alignment. So instead of saying, I want to write a book, say, I want to become someone who writes every morning. That identity shift changes everything. Now let's talk about long-term visioning. Think beyond the next 30 days. Where do you want to be in a year? 5 years? What does your ideal day look like? Who are you with? What are you doing? From that vision, you can reverse engineer backward. If you want to become a full-time creator in 5 years, what would the 1-year milestone be? What weekly habits would support that? Break it down until the next step is unmistakably clear. Also, write your goals down. Seriously. According to studies, you're 42% more likely to achieve your goals if you write them down. Why? Because writing turns a wish into a decision. It makes the goal real. And track your progress. Use a journal, an app, a spreadsheet, whatever works for you. Seeing progress reinforces behavior. It also gives you momentum, which is a massive motivator. Now let's address the elephant in the room, fear of failure. Most people don't set real goals because they're scared. Scared they'll fall short, scared of disappointing themselves again. But here's the truth. Not setting a goal is the biggest failure of all, because it guarantees that nothing changes. Progress, not perfection. That's what matters. So when you miss a day, you're not broken, you're learning. When you fall off track, get back up. Every goal is a skill, and every skill takes reps. And finally, don't set goals in isolation. Share them with someone. Accountability triples your chances of following through. Even just telling one friend, "Hey, I'm working on this," creates positive pressure. Better yet, surround yourself with people who also have goals. Community fuels consistency. So here's your next step. Pick one goal. Make it SMART. Anchor it emotionally. Ask why it matters. Write it down. Track it weekly, share it with one person, and most importantly, act on it within the next 24 hours. Because action creates clarity, and clarity leads to commitment. This isn't about chasing perfection. It's about becoming someone who aims with intention. Because once you learn how to set the right goals, goals that align with your purpose, stretch your potential, and shape your identity, your life becomes a masterpiece of your own design. Section 7, Conclusion and Final Challenge. Let's take a breath. We've talked about why setting goals matters. We've explored what happens when you don't have them, the drifting, the self-doubt, the quiet frustration that builds over time. We've broken down the brain science, the way goals activate dopamine and shape identity. We saw what clarity and confidence look like in motion. And we heard Alina's story, a story that's probably more universal than we like to admit. But now, it's your turn. Because at the end of the day, none of this matters unless you decide to do something with it. Unless you decide to take the wheel of your life and say, "This is where I'm going next." And maybe you've heard all this before. Maybe you've set goals in the past and dropped them. Maybe you're afraid to commit to something again. That's okay, that's human. But the question isn't, have you failed before? The question is, are you still willing to try again? Because that's what this is really about. Not success, not perfection, courage. The courage to aim again. To define a future you actually want. To choose intention over inertia. Let's get brutally honest here. You already know what happens when you don't set goals. You've lived that version of your life. You've felt the fog, the fatigue, the quiet ache of knowing you're capable of more, but not sure where to start. So here's your moment. This is your line in the sand. What's one goal, just one, that you can commit to right now? It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to impress anyone. It just has to matter to you. Maybe it's writing the first page of your book. Maybe it's signing up for that online course you've been avoiding. Maybe it's calling someone you've been meaning to reconnect with. Maybe it's waking up tomorrow and walking for 10 minutes instead of snoozing your alarm. Whatever it is, decide, write it down, say it out loud, claim it. And then, take the first step today. Not tomorrow, not Monday, today. Because once you take that step, something incredible happens. Your brain wakes up, your spirit lifts, and you start to remember that you're not stuck. You were just waiting for the right spark to move again. Let this video be that spark. Let this be the moment where your life shifts, not in some dramatic movie-style way, but in the quiet power of a decision made fully. And here's what I know. That decision will echo. In your energy, in your mood, in your relationships, in your work, in the way you talk to yourself. Because goals don't just change what you do, they change who you are. So choose one, own it, and begin. And if this video gave you even one moment of clarity, one breath of inspiration, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. Let's make this movement bigger than motivation. Let's make it about momentum. Because when you set the right goal, you don't just change your path, you become the kind of person who creates one. And trust me, that version of you, they're closer than you think.